What's up, guys? It's Tayla Jones here with Moose Racing. We got my practice bike here. She's getting a little tired, needs a little love, so we're gonna show you how to swap out the chain and sprockets today. Chain and sprockets are something we want to keep an eye on all the time on our bike. If we don't, we can end up missing teeth on the sprockets and they'll start slipping. The chain can wear down and we can have it snapping, and that can be really bad and end up going through our cases and cause a lot more damage, and we don't want that. Also, it rolls a lot easier if the chain's fresher and new. It's going to make the bike feel a lot easier to ride and the clutch feel super fresh and jumpy, whereas if it's older, it's going to make it feel slow and sluggish, and we don't want that. Right now we've had some mud races, a lot of mud actually, and then sand also wears down stuff a lot faster. When we're keeping an eye on the chain and sprockets, we want to look for the rounding of these teeth right here. If they get too round or they start flattening out altogether, it'll start skipping teeth, and then you'll have no drive to that rear wheel, which is not good at all. So these aren't too bad, but it's starting to get a little bit rounder there. You can see it on the front also. With the chain, if it starts kinking really bad, starts sticking, if it's rusted, if it's stretched out so far that you can't get the axle in all the way, these are all signs that it's getting old and you need to change it out. We don't want it snapping and going through that case. So today we're going to get started showing you guys how to swap out your chain and sprockets. But first I want to emphasize the importance of doing these together. If you swap out the chain and not the sprockets, it's going to wear out the chain really fast. If you swap out the sprockets and not the chain, it's going to wear out the sprockets really fast. So if you want to keep these the longest possible amount of time you can, do them both together. Do all of it together and we're good to go. So we have the Moose Racing 52 tooth rear sprocket. That's what I like the best on the FC250. I've got the 14 tooth Moose front sprocket along with the Moose Racing chain. I like these all together. They are great quality. They last really long. First out, we'll be loosening the countershaft sprocket with a 17mm socket here. We're going to want to put it in gear. This is why we do this first. We don't want that rear wheel to be off. So we'll put it in gear, and then we're going to just loosen like this. If it is still too tight and it's spinning, even in gear, you can come around to the other side. Simple, put your foot on the brake, and we're able to pull up this way. Now we don't want to loosen it all the way up, just a little bit, just enough that we're able to take it off later with that rear wheel off, but we're also able to keep it on there so we can take the chain off. Now we're going to remove the chain. We're going to want the rear wheel on and the bike in gear so it's unable to move. So we're going to find the master link. Got a flat head here and a hammer. So once we get that master link off, then we just want to remove that link so we're able to then remove the chain. Sometimes I'll use a flathead, super simple, get it in under there, easy peasy, pull it out like that. I want to drop these on the ground and lose them, and then we put it out of gear. Pull on out. Now we've removed the chain, I'm just going to go ahead and remove the countershaft sprocket at the 17mm, throw it on the impact, just like that. Don't want to lose this washer right here, and we'll just pull on up. Now we have the front sprocket. We're going to throw it back on here, make sure we're in the right direction. The back side here, we want this groove to be pushed in into those grooves on the back. This side's flat, the washer's going to sit up against it like so. So making sure it goes on the right way. Has these grooves, we're going to get it into these slots. I want to line them up. It's not going to go in if it's not lined up, so that's good to know. This washer is warped a little bit. We want the warp side to be pushed against the sprocket like so. We don't want to be sticking out like this. We don't want to have a little gap underneath. We want it to be flush against. With the bolt, I'm going to be using red Loctite. Always want to use Loctite on the sprocket bolts. If we have one of these come loose, it's going to be a very bad day. So Loctite for sure, blue or red, up to you. I like red though, it's a little bit stronger. It's a little bit on there. Making sure we have that washer the right way. I'm going to go ahead, screw in the first part with my fingers. Get If it's not straight, you're going to strip it. We do not want that, to make sure it's always straight. And then we have the 17mm again on the impact. I'm holding the washer just so I can get it nice and lined up, otherwise it can fall down a little bit. We can't tighten it all the way right now because we have to put the chain back on, but for now, it's good to go. Next up, we're just going to swap out the rear sprocket, but firstly we're going to have to take off the rear wheel. I'm just going to spread the pads apart here, easy peasy. I'm just going to push against the side, push it over, just going to spread them across, just make it easier to put the rear wheel back on later. You can also do that after the rear wheel's off with a flat head, but now we're just going to come down here. This is the rear axle bolt. We had the 30mm wrench here. Throw it on. Super simple and easy. I already had a tiny bit loosened, but it should be very tight, not like that. Once it's out a little bit, I like to just push it in with the nut on it. Just gives me something to push against, and that way it's already out on the other side, something to grab. Now I'm just going to pull out that rear axle, and there's no chain on there, so the rear wheel will just come straight off. But each bike is going to have different sizes, but for this bike we have the T45 and the 13mm, and all we want to do is take off these 6 bolts. So we have a nut on the back, so that's the 13mm, and then on the front is the T45. So we want to be holding on to the back, so that way it won't be spinning. Otherwise it'll be doing this and won't come loose for us. So simple, easy. I'll go around and do each one, loosen them off a little bit, and then I can come back with the impact, do it faster. But to start with, I need to loosen them off, because if you start with the impact, you'll probably strip out these bolts. Now that they're all loose, come back with the impact. Now we have that sprocket off. We have the new sprocket ready to throw on. So we're going to make sure that the divots are on this side, so that when the screws go in, they sit in perfectly. The other side's flat, and it's going to sit flush. Line up the bolts just like that. So we're going to use the same tools as before. We're going to be adding red Loctite. We always want Loctite, especially on the sprockets. So I like to put my Loctite onto the nut inside of here. If we put it onto the bolt on here and then push it through, it then pushes some of the Loctite off. Is we do it on the nut, super easy, and then go straight onto the back. So I'm going to just put a little bit on the inside, like that. Screw it on my fingers to get it started. Now that we have the bolts already in there with our fingers, I like to do them finger tight first so we don't cross thread them. Don't want to cross thread them with the impact and then it'll get stripped out. So do my fingers, and then when you come back, you got the impact. We'll do the first one. And then we're not going to go straight to the next one. We're going to go diagonal across, because if we do all the ones on one side, it's going to become unflush, and then it's not going to sit properly. And then if it's off-centered, it's not going to spin great. So we're going to go diagonal across all these bolts. Okay, now we have all the bolts tight with the impact. We're going to come back with the torque wrench. You want to make sure you check for your own bike's torque specs, but I have mine set here already, ready to go. We're going to go through and torque each of these. Now they're already tight, it's already flush, so I don't have to do diagonal. I can just go around and get them all, make sure they're torqued up. Okay, so now that we have the rear sprocket on, we're going to throw on the rear wheel. Make sure it's lined up. I already have those brake pads spread. Slide it in there. We want to make sure the space is going nice and even. We don't want to push them out. So they're both in fine. Grab my axle right here. Make sure the hole's lined up. I'm just going to throw it in. Okay, on this side, we want to make sure the brakes lined up, the whole system here, so the hole's lined up through our axle. We do that with the wheel and with the brake. This slides forward and back. Make sure it's nice and straight. Get it come through there, all the way through the end. Okay, now the axle's through, got the spacer. Make sure the spacer goes in first. We don't have a chain on yet, so we don't know the exact length that the spacers need to be, but for now, throw on the axle bolt. I'm just going to push it against where it already was at. We're just going to tighten it up a little bit. Just finger tight right now is good because we are going to have to do the spacers here in a little bit. But now we're all good. We're going to move on to putting the chain. Okay, so we have the Moose Racing O Ring Chain. I like the O Ring Chain better for off-road. They're just a little more durable and last a little longer. You can get them O-ringless. For moto, I'd probably pick the O-ringless one, but you do have to keep an eye on it a little more. Pull it out here. Very sticky and slimy. I'm not a super fan, but I'd rather it come grease like this than no grease at all. So this one here, we have a rivet link and we have the normal link. So I'm just going to be using a normal link today. A rivet link, definitely if you're doing lots of off-road riding and stuff like that and you have a rivet press. I do not right now. We're just going to use the normal clips. Right here, we pull it out. You see it comes with the O-rings. So I'm just going to slide 2 of them on here, ready to go for us when we're ready. We have 2 more. They'll go on a little bit later. I'll show you that in a bit, but for now, it's all ready. Alright, we're just going to slide the chain on here, get it on that front sprocket. So we want to make sure it's out of gear so it's able to roll. Follow the chain guides around. That's what they're there for. Sticky. So it goes through this chain guide right here, and it's going to catch that rear sprocket. And we can just spin her around. I'm out here. And then, as you can tell, as we get to this point, we know that this is the same size to sprocket, and we have the spacers in the same spot. We're a little bit long here, so I need to be able to cut out a couple links. Okay, so we know we have to take out a couple of links, but we can't just pick and choose where exactly because we have to make sure we're able to line up the next 2 links in the right spots. So for this one, I can't take off this because these 2 do not line up, gold and the silver. It has to be silver to silver, so it needs to be this one here, which will be here. I have the chain link tool. It's the easiest one that I've ever used. So I'm going to use this. It's got the 17 and the 14 wrenches. Super simple. I'm going to put it over this one here, making sure we have the right area. Double checking a bunch of times, because if I cut it too short, then we're going to be in big troubles. I would rather go shorter than longer. I could go down to this one and stretch it out down here, but as the chain stretches, then we're going to have to get longer and longer, and then we'll be all the way out on our spacers. So I'd rather it be shorter, and as it stretches, then I'm able to push it back further. Know the right spot that we want to be in. Every tool is different. Everyone works differently. This is my favorite that I like to use. This block just slides in here. We're going to put the chain in, making sure we're on the right one that we want to be at. It sits in its little slot. I'm going to push it close. A little fiddly at this point, but once we get it on, we just need our tools. This big one, it's got this handle here. Once the big one's tight, grab this little one, and this is going to push out the bottom through here. It's going to push the pin out. So the pin's going to push through, and then it's going to be able to remove that link. And you'll feel once the pin's all the way through. And then we're just going to loosen it off here. So now that the pin's out, able to pull off that extra piece, and then we're ready to connect these 2. Now we're a little bit apart because I said we wanted to go shorter. I'm going to have to loosen up these spaces right here so we can join this back together. So now we're going to want to loosen up these spaces here so that way we're able to join the chain together. Every bike has different sizes, but on this bike we have the 13 and the 10. 13 is going to be this big one. I'm just going to want to loosen it up. So we're going to make this shorter. So I'm going to just loosen up this big nut, and then we're going to be able to twist it back the other way, make it shorter. Now that it's out, I can twist it back in. We always want to make sure that when we are doing the spaces, that on both sides, you'll be able to see with these lines here, if you look close, but you want to make sure both sides are exactly the same on these lines. If they're a little bit off and it gets sideways, this side's closer and this side's further back, then it's going to be diagonal, and then it's going to ruin your sprockets. It's going to start bending stuff that we don't want to happen. So making sure these lines line up on both sides is always key. Now that we have loosened up the spaces and we're able to join, make sure we get these close enough. It is still slippery. It's going to slide away a little bit. I've got my hands full here. And there. We don't want to lose any of these parts. So when we're putting on the chain, we want to come from the back side and go through. So that way we are able to put the clip on the outside. If we do it on the other side, it's going to make it very difficult. So we don't want that. And also it's going to be able to catch on to the spokes and pull it off, which we also don't want. So now that we have put the link through, we have the 2 O-rings we want to put on this outside. Remember the O-rings, keeping the mud and stuff out of our links. We have the O-rings on there. And we're just going to put on this top plate. We're just going to push that on, and then I'll show you a trick on how to push that on a little bit more, because we're going to have to push it on enough that we're able to push the clip over these little pins here on the end. I'm going to show you guys a little trick. So we have a valve stem nut, and we have vice grips. This is my most painful part, so I try and do it the easiest way possible. So we have the vice grips. Just going to put the valve stem nut over this little pin here. Put on either side, and then we're just going to squeeze. Get that tight. Open them up. Don't want to lose that nut there. And then we're just going to go to the front one and do the same thing. So we want to go back and forth. We can't do the back and not the front, because we're going to get off and get undiagonal. So get the front done. Pull that off. So now it's on there a tiny bit more. We're going to have to tighten this up a little bit. Do it again. So we're going to do it all the way so we're able to see the little slits that we can put the pin in. I think we should be good. So once you're able to see these little lines here, you'll be able to see the grooves that the pin sits in. The way that we put this clip on goes a certain way. If we go this way and it spins like this, then it's going to be able to catch on stuff. If we go this way, it spins like this, then it's unable to catch on stuff because it has this round smooth surface. So making sure we always put the round side to the front is key. We don't want it catching and pulling off. This can be a little bit hard sometimes. My least favorite part. So I just want to line up the flathead in line on top of this clip. Just hammer it softly. You don't want to go under there. You don't want to hit it too hard. You don't want to slip and get your fingers. Nice and easy on there. Make sure it's in all the way. It's sitting in those slots. We don't want it out on the edge. Make sure it rolls. Now the chain's on and it's all good. We can finish the spaces. So we double check both sides that they're in exactly the same place to shorten and lengthen. So this big nut here is what holds it tight, and then to lengthen and shorten, you move the smaller one. We want to double check to make sure these are extra tight. We don't want them coming loose. If one comes loose, it's able to pull the wheel sideways, and that's when we have all sorts of problems. We don't want that, so double checking these big nuts super tight and that we are lined up on both sides. To check the space, I like to do the 4-finger rule. I have 4 fingers from the back of this to the top point. If you can't fit 4 fingers, it's going to be a little bit too tight. If it's more than 4 fingers, it may be a little bit too loose. So now the spaces are in the right place. I'm just going to tighten up this rear axle. I want to make sure that the axle's against the spaces. And to do that, I'm just going to use a rag, put it in the chain here, and it's going to pull back. It's going to pull it really tight and make sure it's pulled all the way against. And we have my 30mm right here. Do it up. We want it to be tight, not overly tight. We don't want to break it, but we definitely want it to be tight. Just pull that forward like that, and then make sure you always pump up those rear brakes. Last but not least, we cannot forget this part. So as we're all done, we have to come back and do that front countershaft sprocket now that we have the chain and rear wheel on. Able to put it in gear. So my one's at 60 Newton meters. Make sure you double check yours first before you get started. Every bike is different. So we're just going to make sure we get this tightened up now. And we have it in gear. Alright guys, I'm super pumped. Got the new chain of sprockets ready to go ride my trusty old steed here. Make sure you head on over to your local Parts Unlimited dealer today to pick up your fresh Moose chain and sprockets so you can head out there and hit up those trails. Like and subscribe for some more how-to videos and follow along with us.